Greetings and welcome to the Dave DY Show, YouTube verse. All my friends on the internet, all my enemies on the internet, and the rest of you dopes. There was a mixed opening on Wall Street this morning. There's been tons of international headlines. The Dow opened strong, I think up 100 points, and now it's mixed. But for the most part, it seems like some percentage of your stocks on the Dow, the S&P, showed an uptick. I mean, there's some losers, which is why it's mixed, but a lot of stock went up. Tesla, I got Tesla, jumped over $10. So all this is based on these headlines that are out there right now. The headlines focus on international policy and trade. China this week and the U.S. have negotiations on these tariffs, on the trade policy, on the restrictions, on all this controversy that's been going on, right? Deputy level negotiations are going to occur. I think U.S. Trade Representative Jeffrey Garish is going to meet and talk with some Chinese rep, and then you're going to have Lighthizer and Mnuchin talk. So, I mean, these are senior folks talking to China. Big deals. Maybe we can squash some of this shit. We're not going to. Clearly, China's, I've said this recently, China's doing whatever they want. We talked to Canada. We got the Huawei CFO, the daughter of the company, arrested, right, held. I think we're pursuing prosecution on her. There's stories that are out right now, Wall Street Journal and otherwise, and whatever. You know, Wall Street Journal, in my book, was probably one of the best media publications over our last 50 years, 60 years. Strange in the publication itself with the way they did the cover, and they had like the typecast with the print cast where it was like, you know, your font was different, and they used the wood pattern images. They never put photos. The Wall Street Journal never put actual photos in their newspaper. But always reputable, factual, informative, accurate. Never, not controversial, but factually controversial. And media lost that a long time ago. They just released Bob Costas, his termination a week prior to the Olympics, but the Super Bowl. He was supposed to do his final Super Bowl in 2017. 3 months prior, he went to some major conference. They paid him shit tons of money, and he blabbed his big mouth about CTE. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, right? That brain damage BS, and any trauma activities. We see it with our soldiers that have IEDs, that have any type of battle, large shell discharges, right? Any type of blunt or heavy-duty force traumas to your brain, and then your brain goes through this process of seeing the injury, trying to heal the injury, right, and then the scars from it, these dead zones that you see in football players from continuous, ongoing, high-speed impacts, collisions, leading with your head, and then ultimately, you know, all the suicides, all of the testimonials, all of the legal issues, the doctor, played by Will Smith, right? So it's a known. Costas was going to go out, you know, and blab about it. And it's a reaction. There was a time when I thought Bob Costas was fabulous, probably the 80s. He was young, he was factual, he was well-spoken, he was clear, he was personable. He didn't elaborate fantastically. He wasn't bombastic and loud and chaotic. Very fluid. He reminded me of a milder Howard Cosell. just gave you the facts, had a good perspective, and then he got weird. Dude, you're broadcasting an event. I don't want your political views. I don't want your altruistic, opinions. You're paid to broadcast that event. You're sitting at the Olympics and he's talking about, oppression or travesty somewhere else in the globe or politics. Dude, if you want to do that, go over to Face the Nation or go over to Good Morning America or the Today Show and do your op-ed piece with Tom Brokaw. Get the fuck out of here. You're a sportscaster, dude. Shut up. And it ruined it for me. And he became more and more boisterous about those opinions. And I think to me that was his normal aging and his wisdom and his growth. But I thought it was a major deterrent for his ability as a sportscaster and as a media presence. And I stopped watching him. I disliked it. I didn't need it. What's his name? The black dude. Bryant Gumbel. He did the same thing. And he got highly racial and highly charged. And he was great. I love the dude. Factual, well-spoken, great stories, smart as hell. Both of these guys could put the stuff together, and then it all spun out of control. The Wall Street Journal, I don't think, ever did that, which is why I love the Journal, and I love to read the Journal. And it's been a great periodical for decades. Wonderful. I don't know about online. They always ding me because I go through my 6 free reads in the month or whatever, and then the site shuts down, tells me I got to register. But they just fired out some information on China. Sorry for the divergence. The internet splitting. When you read that, I mean, you're like, what's this about? Who's the what? Yeah, what? And it's true. Because of China's size and because of their stance and presence in technology and communism and in the global market, they've restricted and produced all of their own environment for the internet. Like we have Amazon, they have Alibaba, right? They have specific apps that control a large portion of the Pacific Rim, the Pacific Basin, China, right? And these apps are all intermingled, and they're utilizing the technology, the skill base, all the stolen intellectual property. And they're working these mobile apps. It's primarily mobile because everybody over there has a phone, which we see, Huawei and all these massive producers, millions and millions of devices that they're pumping out, right? That are way cheaper than Apple phone, that they can do anything they want on. They can run all of the logging. They can run all of the Whisper apps. They can do anything they want. You want a phone, that's what you're going to get. They can spy on everybody, right? And then, of course, they've gone over here and you've got a bunch of, individuals that are offended and that are challenging it and stating, that's not lawful. The UK and the USA and the other free world nations and these privacy, data policies, right protection policies, they're not being performed anywhere else on the planet. Anywhere else. Russia is contemplating turning off the internet for a period of time coming here. It's in the news. China controls their own internet with all their own functionality. And it's splitting from Facebook. Facebook and Apple and some of these guys are trying to continue to have policies that work in that culture and world, and in ours, going to be very difficult because you're going to have entirely separate environments, right? And that won't work in their cloud-based stuff, Amazon Web Services or Azure or whatever. So it's getting weird, and it is a major split. And that's why over a period of time you had your crypto craze. All your cryptocurrencies exploded because the Chinese were actually utilizing that currency as an underground or a backdoor to bypass all of the communist oppressive policies that government's pushing to its people. In Taiwan, in Hong Kong, right? And they're even they're spreading. Fuck me! All right, I'm gonna leave this bitch. So this stuff is spreading even worse to those parts of the nations, right? those policies are spreading. And, that's why all these people were taking their riches and they were gambling and they were getting their money in Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? Ether and all these other, because the government couldn't track it. Fuck you guys. I'll spend my money this way. But like I said yesterday, then you disappear. They take you to some internment camp. They take you to some location in China and you're not alive anymore. They ask you to come to the embassy. They strangle you. They chop you up into pieces like my friends in the Middle East do. Don't go to the embassies, especially if you work for the Washington Post. Khashoggi. Dude, it's a fucked up world. Anyway, that's what's going on in pieces with these crazy controls. And that's why they're exploding, and we're trying to modernize and regulate and manage and keep rights and keep freedoms. And it's going to be a dichotomy. But it's going to be ongoing. It's going to take time. And it's a limited market. The Chinese Asia's a massive market, but it's not the entire market. And it's not sustainable growth. You can do it for a decade, 2 decades or whatever. But ultimately, the only way that these conglomerates are going to continue to exist is on a global playing field. They will have to continue to grow around the globe to all 8 billion people, right? And feed through that product, that profit, whatever they're pushing out. And we've proven that in the United States. That's why we've spread everywhere, right? We've moved outside of the contiguous states. We've moved outside the contiguous states and do business everywhere on the globe now because that's where the real money is. So, a lot of weird stuff going on. The market's up. There's talks that are... What's going to come out of these talks with Beijing? Who knows? Is it going to be reality and stability and a great accord and a treaty and huge agreement? Fuck no. Will it be a piecemeal with some fundamental agreements and then some concessions and then underlying potential distrust and business as usual operations? Probably, because that's the way it goes. But we've got to continue down this path. Nixon started it. We've got to be partnered in some way, shape, or form with that country. Because to be ongoing productive, you have to have that interface, right? And the plants over in China, the utilization of their technologies, the utilization of their resources, their cheap labor, their unlimited labor, their unlimited property and management and operations control. They can dump shit everywhere. They can cause pollution. They can create all your super dangerous junk and then ship it to the rest of the world. So that's what's going on. And I don't know what's going to come out of it, but it's a lot of noise right now. And Russia, like I said, they're shutting down their internet. So there's posturing going on. And there's positives. The Chinese economy took an uptick. Alibaba and these big companies, as soon as you start stating, all right, the U.S. seems like they're going to be friendly and potentially open up a market again, we are a vast resource for that market. Fuck, we always have been, right? Everything we've purchased in the last 50 years, made in Taiwan, made in China. Now, made in India, made in Guatemala, right? Made in the Philippines, right? So, a little different, but primarily, that's been our major operational producer over there. That's been the place that's made a huge majority of our goods. So, we have to keep our eye on this and see what happens and what comes from it. On another note, that's going on. We'll see. Favorable market today, tomorrow could be a piece of shit. On Friday, could all fall through crap, right? And the stupid market takes a major downtick. Big correction, 100 points, 300 points, 500 points, 800 points. That's how this thing's been going. Though we've had multiple days of stability, and then we've had a minor correction. And then maybe another minor correction, and then more multiple days of stability. With minor growth, minor uptick, and then stable, and then individual stocks that show some earnings reports or something that jump. It hasn't been bad. January hasn't been a bad month, into February for the market. I'll have to see how this continues. All this business about the wall. People to the Grammys last night wore Keep America Great, Make America Great, Trump outfits, wall outfits, all this polarization, right? The NPR had the mayor of El Paso on. The mayor of El Paso spoke to National Public Radio, and National Public Radio has a conservative spin, has a liberal spin, if you don't know. Down here, at least, in Florida. But they also report out to Culver City, and they report up to New York and Washington, D.C. A lot of the people are liberal on NPR. I don't know when that changed. It doesn't matter. Their opinions. They pulled the mayor on, and they asked the mayor of El Paso, hey, the president during his State of the Union said that you guys had high violence and crime. It was pretty terrible. You guys slapped up a wall, and when you did that, you became one of the safest cities. It shut down all the problems. Everything was good. So yeah, Trump in his State of the Union brought up the outstanding results of building a wall in El Paso, separating El Paso from Juarez, which, if you don't know, is one of the murder capitals of the world. Juarez has turned into an epicenter for poverty, for violence, for drug trafficking, for slave and sex trafficking. And I mean, in the world, the cartels have moved into there. If you look on Netflix and other repositories, there's movies about narco and whatnot. A lot of that stuff occurs in El Paso, in Juarez. And it's pretty populous. It's a pretty big area with a lot of slum that just spreads. And what's the mayor's name? D. Margo. He was on NPR. And the NPR staff, Steve Inskeep and whatever that gal's name is, Rachel Martin, they interview him and talk to him. And he's factual. How novel. He's factual. He's not polarized and opinionated and one-sided. He's factual. And you can call him a conservative, you can call him a liberal. He just talks about the facts that El Paso was one of the safest cities in the country prior to a wall. And the reason was law enforcement, drug enforcement, technology, policy, government, social service structures. They were all in place, busting their balls to try to manage that environment, that border. And sometime in early 2000s, 2005, 6, 8, 10, they put a fence up. And with Border Patrol, I think there's somewhere in the realm of 70 or 80 miles of some type of barrier in that area. But Governor D says, or Mayor D was like, dude, the physical landscape of Texas won't allow many locations for a fence or a wall or a border. Just won't. Because there's river, there's valley, there's undulation, there's, crazy, surface land. A lot of it's private property, so you can't just build this stuff through people's property, ranches and farms, or whatever, giant swaths of wasteland. Somebody owns a lot of that. Some ones own a lot of that. So he's like, it's the silliest thing. And the barrier in El Paso did help. There was heavy crime, car theft, vandalism and break-ins. There were a lot of criminals that were not dissuaded to come across with better assets, nicer goods, and steal from El Paso while they lived in Juarez. And he states, if you stand on the roof of any of the buildings and look out, you can clearly see where the delineation of the United States turns into Juarez, turns into poverty and slum, and it's that close, right? Visibility, visually, you can see the change. And the wall has helped. The fence has helped, but not without Border Patrol, law enforcement, DEA, federal government, local police forces, technology to track all that, to manage it, night vision, helicopters, police cruisers, machinery, personnel. process. And he stated, this has been going on for 400 years in Mexico and the United States. This is not new. And DACA, immigration in general, caravans from Central and South America, individuals in Juarez crossing to El Paso, has all been broken for multiple decades now. Never managed. The processes are broken. The government agencies, the local and state government agencies, the social and private agencies that do any work, that try to manage any of that, they're not successful. And he gave numbers where they turn away 100 people. They inter and capture and turn away 100 people a week, or just big numbers. And that's a percentage. They're not successful. And he brought that up, and the NPR story quickly closed. Okay, thanks, Governor, Mayor D. Out. Because that's not the narrative that wants to be heard by the media and in the public right now. We don't want to hear about the negativity to immigrants. We don't want to hear about the poverty-stricken, impoverished, broken, sad people that are fleeing oppression and violence and neglect and starvation and disease to come here for some fucking reason. It's so stupid. It's fact. So it was a great interview. It's out on the web. You should look it up, NPR. The El Paso mayor, D. Margo, talks to Rachel Martin and Steve Inskeep. I loved it, and it was informative. Enjoy. So that's the status of our wall. And now we have a pending date here this week where the government funding will run out, and they still haven't made an agreement on this wall, which is just ridiculous. I think Bush was the one in office when they put the El Paso wall up, or the El Paso fence, or border separator, or whatever you call it. So it's sort of strange. This silly fixation. It's not strange at all. It's totally believable. But yeah, that's the state of the state there. And you've got, Mayor D said something to the effect where they seem to be managing the minors. So they're focusing on little ridiculous things as opposed to real problems like immigration, children of DACA, caravans from Central and South America, free passage, all of these pieces, and polarized simplicity, stupidity, ignorance. Wall or no wall, we're not addressing anything, and everybody's aligned with a side. So, big news in China, market news, and our ongoing wall drama. Wanted to talk about those today. Thanks for listening. Subscribe, comment, like, share. Enjoy. One last piece of commentary. I don't know where I read it or saw it. I think it was this morning. It could have been last night. There's a periodical, an advertisement, a t-shirt, something going around with some snippet, picture, and word stating that heaven's got a wall. Heaven's got a wall. And it's become viral and controversial, right? When you walk up to the gates of heaven and you meet St. Peter. They got a wall. Keep you out. Keep those miscreants that go down to the devil out. And let all ye God-fearing good people in. God bless you. God bless you, St. Peter. I have not done any evil. Let me in. So silly how our country, how our people fixate and actually lose all capacity of reason and become angry and resentful and bitter and violent. And man, this is a human factor. It's been going on since we stepped out of the trees, out of the water, upright, whatever. Me and you are best buddies, and for some fucking reason, I'm in the police news because I killed you. What's it usually over? Money, women, drugs, whatever. 7 deadly sins, man. I think that's why we have commandments. Thou shalt not. Yeah. So think about that stuff for a minute. And then, it's curious. It sets you back, but how does it apply today? Maybe it doesn't apply. It's all relative to your opinion, your position. But that made me giggle a little. Heaven's got a wall, man. We need a wall in Mexico. Out.